Hey everybody, welcome to Fractured Focus, episode number 7, the show where we obsess about everything from geek culture to nerd news along with random topics for discussion. I'm one of your hosts, Ben Gordon, alongside my brother, the illustrious Dan Gordon.
Hi, Ben.
Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. You ready for a show?
I'm ready to go.
Let's go ahead and do this. And coming in live from the great state of Nebraska, the original Swino of Omaha himself, Matt Swinehart. Matt, how you doing?
Friggin' awesome. Sorry, we've been doing it.
Yeah, you do the Boston so well. We'll just go ahead and see if we can stick that throughout the entire frickin' show. This is it. First week is under the belt for 2007, and I'm really excited.
2017.
Yeah.
What did I say?
2007.
Boy, it kind of reminds me back to our Hangover show. If you haven't watched that, go watch that one. You know what? It wasn't as bad.
100%.
Yeah. Looking back at it in retrospect, I don't think we were as bad as we thought we were going to be. I mean, we were definitely not at 100%, but
See the pain.
yeah.
But it's definitely.
It got better as the episode went along.
Yeah. Well, it definitely wasn't. It's not like it was one of the worst New Year's hangovers that we've ever had, you know. Nothing like drinking a lot of water and Gatorade before you go to bed to save the day, but cool. Matt, did you have a good week?
I did. My son's birthday was last weekend. My daughter's birthday was this weekend. So, good times.
So apparently that means that about 9 months ago is a really special time for you and your wife.
Well, 9 months ago, years ago. For a while, I was actually convinced my wife was only fertile for 2 weeks out of the entire year. And if we could have just avoided that time. No. No, it's with my son, he was a blessing, we'll call it. And then with my daughter, we just had to try for like a year and a half.
Oh, that's cool, though.
But, yeah, it turned out we had a couple Christmas babies.
Well, this is what you should definitely show them as they come of age, the little video about Daddy talking about them and how they were conceived.
Sorry, Jimmy,
I got video of that somewhere else.
what we call the parent trap.
Yeah, you realize on YouTube, I don't have a way to put, like, you can't watch this if you're not a certain age. It's frickin' YouTube. Like, they can watch whatever we post up there, so you might want to hide the link.
Well, I'm not telling them about Santa Claus and Easter.
That's true, too. All right, that's cool. Well, we're already on a perfect track record for this episode. Derailed before we even get to the first topic.
Liven it up.
I know. Let's have some fun with this. All right, so let's talk about our first topic. This is cool. This is going to be a fun week. This is the last show we're going to do before the Nintendo press conference where they're announcing lots of details on the Nintendo Switch. It's going to be happening Thursday. We got 4 days left. So what I'd like to do, at least for the first topic, is spend some time talking about what do we think it's going to have, what would we want it to have, and maybe going into a little bit of Nintendo history as far as what has Nintendo done correctly in the past and what have they maybe not done so well or royally fucked up or anywhere in that spectrum. It really doesn't make a difference. But let's go ahead and start with topic 1A. What do you guys think is actually going to be in the Nintendo Switch? What do you think that we're going to get? Like the specs, all that type of stuff. We know that let's start with this. We already know that we're getting a screen. We don't know the resolution. It hasn't been officially announced that it's touchscreen, but the FCC documents that when they registered the trademarks or copy or whatever it was that went up on the line show that it was a touchscreen. We know the Joy-Con controllers. We don't know battery life. We don't know internal storage. I mean, really, that's all we know, right? Mm-hmm. For the most part. What do you guys think that this thing is going to have? Size, storage, all that stuff.
Oh, you want the actual specs?
Yeah, we can talk. We can start out with specs.
I just want to know how much external memory I can throw on this thing.
Yeah.
Because I gotta have an SD card to go on that Switch.
Mm-hmm. They'll have to have that, right?
To be sarcastic, but yeah.
I can't imagine them not, because how would they do like patches for games?
It's more, yeah, and I just kind of capacity. I mean, I've kind of heard some rumors that it's gone up to about maybe 130 gigs that you can do with an extra SD card.
I hope they allow bigger than that, right?
I mean,
if you can get a 256 gig micro SD card, then why turn that ability or that feature off?
Yeah, so it's kind of like that, because as far as performance is going to go, we already know that this isn't going to be a high-end machine. It's not designed to be. So I really want to see just how much juice I can, or how much I can crank out of this machine. Get some specifics.
And since it's cartridge based, I guess the storage isn't as important, but it's still, I'm a digital guy. I like get my games digital.
Yeah.
I'm new.
If it's like the DS, the cartridges themselves will have memory storage on them.
Like, you mean additional for patches and updates and stuff?
No, I'm just talking about if they're like the DS, those discs, those cartridges actually store game memory on them.
Well, yeah, for like save game data, right? But what I'm talking
Yeah.
about is if they want to do what the other systems have kind of had commonplace, it just feels like we're in a 0.9 world right now. We're not in a 1.0 release anymore. They release a game and then they have a day one patch that they're planning to get out. Now, I'm assuming they don't do that with DS games because they can't do that. That's why I was wondering, are they going to have patches or DLC for games? Because there's no way they're not going to have DLC for some of this stuff if it's going to be a mainstream console. Are they going to do that with a storage allotment per cartridge that you put in that can also store additional content? I don't even know how that's technically doable. Maybe it is, but I'm assuming that would either go to the internal memory that it comes with or the extra storage that you put in there too. But yeah, let's do these one at a time. It'll make it easier. What do you guys think this thing's going to have for storage?
32.
32? I bet 32 too. That just seems to be Nintendo's number for some reason.
Yeah, so it's the onboard. I mean, 64 would be cool, just kind of an homage back to the 64. But no, I think 32 because they're going to try to keep costs down.
Right, and I'm assuming the reason that they do 32 is it's enough for to have room for system updates or maybe little patches or whatever. But I'm assuming that's not going to be really for maybe if you've got room, but for game downloads. Because how many games could you actually even fit on this thing in an internal memory of just 32 gigabytes?
And I was wondering about that too because I mean I have a PS3. I buy a game and at least 3 or 4 gigs have to go on the hard drive for me to play it.
Well, and on the PS4 and the Xbox One, the entire game installs to the hard drive. It doesn't read off the disc after it's been installed. You have to have the disc in there to play it for copyright protection, but the entire game runs off the hard drive.
What are the limitations with cartridge speed though?
Oh, it's like flash memory.
Because
it's super fast. It's going to not be a speed issue.
It's like a solid state drive that
right.
you're reading it off of.
Yeah, it won't be a speed
not
issue.
A disc.
Do we all agree that there's going to be a micro SD reader?
I hope so.
I think that would be a huge screw up if they didn't do that. Don't you guys agree? Because
The
how
thing
are you
about that though? If there's a micro SD, I mean, look at, and I hate to bring this up so quickly into it, but look at what they've just done with the NES Classic, or at least what they're reporting. So they hacked it, added new games. If you give that functionality of the micro SD to it, people are going to be hacking these things.
Yeah,
if you make it that easy for them to add additional stuff.
So far, yeah, don't get me wrong. Nintendo's huge against piracy. I mean, they even make Super Mario Run you can't use without an internet connection. And they've explicitly said that's for piracy concerns.
I got people playing Pokemon Go with a hack so they can be in Australia in their living room.
Right, but I'm saying what percentage of the population is actually doing that? Dude, nobody cares. What percentage of the population actually does that or has the capability to do that? Small. It's like swatting at flies. It's not really that big of a deal to them, but they've always been hugely against piracy. That's why they did the proprietary, they said anyway, that's why they did the proprietary discs for the GameCube instead of going with DVD media. That's why they love cartridge format. It helps protect against it, but it doesn't solve the issue. I just think in the digital age, I understand wanting to copyright and protect your own IP, but I can't imagine them not putting a micro SD card reader into this thing just because they're worried about people pirating stuff. Because how else are you even going to have an online virtual store if you don't have storage to download this shit to? I don't see them going backwards and not having it. I just don't see a way around it unless they want to add to the cost.
I guess I didn't think about Nintendo Store or Nintendo Shop or whatever they call it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to port old games into it,
yep.
If you want to get NES, Super NES games, you're going to have a place to put them.
Yep.
Because you're not going to buy a blank cartridge and put it on a cartridge.
Right. And the old stuff, the old stuff's so small, you could put every single Nintendo game and every single Super Nintendo game and probably even every single Nintendo 64 game onto a couple gigabytes. They're tiny. The NES games are kilobyte size. But what I'm specifically talking about is the new games going forward. I can't imagine them not using a digital model in addition to cartridge. I just don't see them completely shutting that off. If anything, they're going to want to accentuate that, and I think you need storage. And I agree, the only way to keep costs down in this would be to have a micro SD card solution. I just hope that they let you put in a big one as possible. That's what she said.
Yeah. That's what she wanted.
What? You're beautiful. Okay. What do we think about screen resolution? Obviously it's going to output 1080p when you got it docked, but what do you guys think the resolution of the screen is going to be?
4K.
Yeah. 4K.
I think if it matches what most cell phones have,
well,
that's fine.
That's interesting because, I mean, the iPhone 6S is 1080p, but most of the Android and other models, they're trying to go this spec war, which I think is funny on phones because I can't tell a difference between a 326 dots per inch screen that's 1080p and these ones where they're like, and it's like quad HD, it's 4 times, and I'm like, I can't see the pixels, so I don't fucking care, you know. But there was some rumors on the internet. I assumed that the screen would be myself 720p because if your eyes can't tell a difference, what difference does it make if that gives you more battery life? The CPU processor doesn't need to be at full clock speed all the time while you've got it on the go. But then when it's docked, then it would output the 1080p where you can actually get the difference on your big screen TV. But now there's rumors going around because in the FCC documents about the patents that they filed for it, or I don't know if it's patent, whatever it is, the FCC documents that got out, that it might be a quad HD, which means 1440p. So basically 4 times the resolution of 720. That's higher than 1080. For 1440p.
Like
huh? Yeah,
like
yeah,
2K.
basically. But it's known, yeah, exactly. But the term that's out there universally that people refer to is quad HD. And the reason that they were saying that, I'm assuming, is because also in these specs is that it's in the Nintendo release documents that it's possible for you to take the screen and drop it into a head-mounted display and use it as a VR device. Now, whether or not that comes to fruition, patents get filed all the time that never get used, you know?
I gotta tell you, if they do that, if they were forward thinking enough to make it so that in a year from now they have their own VR
right
aperture or whatever it is that you can drop your games into,
right?
They already have the detachable remotes.
Yeah,
I mean that right there could be the saving grace.
I'm trying to think
that
how that would
genius.
That would be awesome if that were the case. We haven't really gotten to see up close this Switch or hold it in our hands, so it's hard to picture the size of this. Because we've done this with Google, what's it called? The Google Cardboard, where you put the smartphone into it. And we've done that with 6Ss, which is the biggest iPhone that you can get. And that was no problem. The Switch, I'm assuming, is going to be at least somewhat decently bigger than the 6S. How big, how thick, how weighty is this thing going to be for a device? I mean, unless Nintendo also sells their own, which I'm assuming they would, head-mounted display that's nice and comfortable and balanced. That just seems like the complete opposite route that I was assuming they were going to go lower resolution. But if they do want to use this thing for VR, 1080p alone for VR is not that great. You know, that's what the PlayStation 4 uses. Not bad. Our brother has an Oculus Rift that's higher than 1080p. It's 1200, so it's getting closer to this quad 1440. Night and day difference. You know what I mean? That screen door effect, seeing the pixels when they're that close to your eye, having more of them is a big deal. And until we get to at least 4K per eye, that screen door effect is going to be a big deal. So when I first read those rumors of a potential 1440p resolution on the portable display, I was like, that makes no sense. They would go the other route. They would go less than 1080. Why would they go more? But then with the documents that were leaked, I don't know, it's possible. What do you guys think? Do you think that they'll go that route?
Virtual Boy 2.
Did you see? There was a meme or a picture that went on the internet of someone that announced the Switch VR, and they actually just broke off the bottom of the Virtual Boy, and they strapped the Virtual Boy to a guy's head, and I just started laughing. That'd be so funny if they... You guys think this is possible?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the idea of trying to... I keep thinking of just trying to how are they going to convert the Switch into something similar and user friendly as the Google Cardboard?
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. You could kind of develop,
well, if you got the wireless controllers here, that's a big part of it.
Well, part of it. I mean, I'm just thinking also specifically just the design of the headgear.
Right.
Like
which we haven't seen. We don't even know what that would look like, how it would work.
But at least with the Rift, we know like this thing was designed to be
aesthetically awesome.
Well, aesthetically awesome, but also functionally practical. I mean, the big thing is that this thing has got to be light as a feather. To really be functional. If you're already looking at kind of just taking the Switch off the console and then just dumping it into almost like you're almost assembling the essentially the headpiece, when you want
with
to
the
use
processor here, not in a computer over there.
And
right.
Yeah, I mean, just the mechanics of it actually working well as far as kind of using like a design that's what was the right word I'm looking for? Ergonomics.
Yeah.
So that I'm not feeling like, okay, well, I'm playing a game, but I can constantly feel. I'm not weighted down, but I can feel it when I'm trying to wear it. That's just kind of that takes you out of like what everything that the VR systems are trying to do right now.
Right.
Which is just kind of its ease of use, its simplicity, and its immersive. And, having that.
I agree with you. I mean, it seems like a big question mark. Like, could you pull that off?
Yeah.
But then, you look at the Rift, which they'll even tell you flat out, our whole goal is to make this thing you're right, ergonomically pleasing as possible. And it's about the weight of a baseball cap. It's light as hell, but it's got those high-res screens that are separately. You individually move them per eye for your IPD or whatever.
But it's
that
not a
stands for.
wireless thing. It's plugs in.
For the Vive. Yeah, well, what I was going to say is looking at the Vive compared to the Rift, the HTC Vive looks like this bulky monstrosity that looks uncomfortable as hell. But from every review I've read, because I haven't used the Vive, I've obviously used the Rift a number of times, but the Vive, from what I've read, I should say, it's pretty close to the Rift. It looks big and bulky and ridiculous, but it's a little bit more top heavy, but the balance that they got with everything is really good. So we're in the beginning days of VR. I would hope that Nintendo would lose their listen. I agree with you. I don't have the same confidence in Nintendo going into this territory that I do with the people that are very dedicated and passionate about VR.
I mean, it's one thing to have a system that's really dedicated around the idea of VR, and it's.
But look at Sony.
Yeah, that's true. But I wince a little bit whenever I see somebody's trying to take the VR tech and just bolting it onto your system.
Yeah.
Because it's not anytime that you take that approach. It's very difficult to get a very high level of quality and to actually make or to achieve a certain level of VR success. You really have to be hitting all your points.
Right.
You can't just have. It's a new enough industry, you don't really have a lot of wiggle room as far as what you can get away with.
And wouldn't you agree too? This is not even 1.0. This is like 0.9. It's going to be 2 or 3 years until the next iteration of VR for all these manufacturers comes out. Stuff really starts to come together. So I guess counterpoint to what you're saying, because I agree with what you're saying. The way that Sony's done VR with their headset looks a lot more elaborate than the Rift, which is just slide on and you're good to go and it's light. But from everybody I've talked to, the PlayStation VR is very comfortable, very easy to just snap on. It just looks big, bulky, and ridiculous. Do you have more faith in Nintendo coming up with something more ergonomically if this comes to pass than Sony did? Because I would say I would think Nintendo more than Sony.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Nintendo was known for that stuff.
Right.
I mean, think about the technology behind the light gun.
Mm-hmm.
Just that alone. And they launched that with the system. And then they were always trying to innovate, always trying to come up with a new thing.
Nintendo's probably done more for innovation in video games than any company out there. I mean, yeah, they've had a lot of misfires, but at least they're always trying, and they've had.
But yeah, well, Power Glove. No, but like to that point, what you're seeing right now is VR is going from a niche market to mainstream. We're right there in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing it because 2 years ago there was only a couple of companies even making VR stuff, and most of them were making things that your phone just slid into.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have companies that are dedicated to it. You got the Oculus. You got what Sony's doing. I'm pretty sure that Samsung is wanting to enter the space with their own. I mean, it's becoming more mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think if the possibility is there for Nintendo to at least bring something to market,
yeah,
they probably will.
And it's very possible this is just so many companies, Apple, Samsung, everybody file patents all the time for products that never come to light. They're just making sure that they get the patents out there. It could not materialize. I even don't think it would be death for Nintendo or bad for Nintendo. I'm not wanting this to happen, but even if they sat this out and just waited for the next iteration of VR, really until
they were the originators
of VR.
You really want to think about it? Home VR. We joked about Virtual Boy.
That wasn't
VR.
That was just 3D, though. That wasn't VR.
It was 3D, but it was an attempt.
Yeah, but not for virtual reality. That was just gaming in
then.
3D. Virtuality, it was like looking around in a surrounding. I mean, I had the Virtual Boy. It sucked.
Of it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and it caused headaches and issues
with
people.
Semantics aside,
mainstream,
modern VR, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, even if they set this, I think really until we get to the point of at least, and I know this is a Nintendo topic, we veered off, and I'll bring us back here in a second. But to close this out, until we get to at least 4K per eye, which we're at least a few years out from a next major product that can do that. All this stuff is kind of like the wild, wild west of playgrounds of just getting the fee. I don't think we're going to hit main market saturation for at least 5 years. Getting the cost down so that the mass consumer can go out, the mass, how do you say it? The mass population, the average consumer can go out and get this thing for just a couple $100, and it's so high quality. compared to what you need to spend on something to have that same kind of experience today, which is still going to run you over $1,000. I mean, look at that setup.
5 years
yeah.
from Synchronicity.
There you go.
You've seen that, haven't you?
No, but it
The
sounded
Bruce
like a
Willis
good
movie?
tagline. What is it? Is it a movie or something?
To veer off the topic again, so I'm pretty sure it's called Synchronicity, but it was a Bruce Willis movie where he played a cop that was investigating a death that took place in a virtual world, and this is like in a future where everybody's just jacked in. Just the filthiest, dirtiest things you could imagine, or just everyday things. This movie came out like 4 or 5 years ago. But it was
I don't remember this at all.
It was essentially just dealt with people being in VR.
Straight to video.
Like they never even left their house. They just always had their VR stuff on. They were always plugged in.
Whole body gets atrophy. We're entering
If
the
you don't have a
Matrix.
chance, it's worth watching at least once.
Mm-hmm. No, that's interesting. Well, I'll tell you, let's finish off these checklists. So we all pretty much think we could talk about VR for another hour and a half.
Yeah, different episode.
I know, right? We're pretty much guessing 32 gigabytes. Screen resolution. What do you guys think it's going to be? I still think it's going to be 720, 1080. Yeah. What do you think?
I'm going to go with 2K.
You mean like the the quad HD, the 1440 that's been rumored? Okay, cool. This will be cool. We'll have to remember this because then we'll do it. I told you so afterwards. We'll keep scorecards. Battery life rumored 3 hours. I think that's accurate. Big thing. Two last big things. What games do you think are going to be? I'll say not necessarily launch day, but launch window. Right, the first month or so. What games do you think are going to be launch window?
The ones we don't already know about?
Well, nothing's confirmed officially. Nothing. And there's been rumors that Zelda's might be delayed for months. There's rumors that it might still make it. I think Zelda's going to make it.
Zelda's going to make it.
Yep.
It's a platform game.
Yeah, but Nintendo never releases their games till they're ready. They're really big on that, but I think that they will. They need this.
It's a different kind of world. You can put a game out there, and as long as people aren't going to play all the way through it, you can put patches and plugs or plugins or whatever. The way.
Yep, that's true. So what do you guys think for here's
what you were going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, yeah. I mean, if they really want to get the most out of this release, it kind of has to be Zelda. I mean, nothing's really going to appeal to the Nintendo audience on such a big enough scale. I think
Mario,
but do you actually have like an in develop?
Yeah, I mean
expected to be ready to go
from the people that have talked to the insiders and the developers inside Nintendo. Apparently, the Mario game is the most farthest along game. And way farther along than any of the press realized. And I think that's one of the reasons that they were showing Mario the most in the trailer that they showed for the Switch. And it's so funny when people are talking about, I don't know, the frame rate on that thing didn't look as good. None of that footage was actual. That was synthesized stuff that they put the images on afterwards. So none of that was actually watching the Switch in action. I think Mario's going to be launched for sure. In fact, if they put it in as a pack-in, game over, Nintendo's back on top. I think that would be one of the smartest moves in the world to get out of this Wii U hump and put yourselves back out in the limelight if they included a new Mario 64, stylistic game.
Mario Sunshine? Super Mario
Well,
Sunshine.
yeah, but when you say Sunshine, people have kind of a negative taste in their mouth from that one. It was very divided. 64 is universally beloved, but they both played about the same, right? The triple jump, bringing the punch back, all that stuff. But it's
Mario Galaxy.
Yeah, but that was more based on the gravity, so this is getting back to the 64, closer to that. But whatever you want to call it, I think Mario will be a launch title. I think that we'll have Zelda. I think that it's going to be down to the wire, but I bet it'll be at least in the first few weeks, if not the day of. Mario Kart.
Super Smash Brothers.
Don't know. Haven't seen anything on that. Definitely, it would be smart. I don't know if they've ported it ready. I think because they've shown Mario Kart.
They'll have a Pokemon game ready.
I think that's a very good possibility. If not launch day, in the first few months maybe. Because if you got at least 2 or 3 bang hits out of the gate, and then also leading into the summer, you've got 2 or 3 more big blockbusters. Now you're off to the races. So it's possible. But I mean, what do you guys think? I think Mario Kart 8, Mario, Zelda. There'll be obviously other games that I don't know about, but I think that those are the 3 that I would bet on for the launch first month window. I
don't know. I'm kind of thinking, like, what games are they going to scale up? Because there's got to be some Wii U games or just some Wii games that they're going to scale up to the new one.
Mario Maker.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking before, and I lost my train of thought.
Definitely going to be ported, if not immediately. There's no way they would not get that out to a bigger audience.
It's been huge for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And touchscreen. You can do it right there. Dock it. Now just go play. That's simple. Yep. Almost makes me wonder if they're going to have a stylus for this thing, because you almost kind of need that for Mario Maker, but maybe they'll find a workaround for that. What do you think for games?
I am still putting my eggs in the Zelda basket.
Zelda for sure?
Yeah.
Anything else?
I hope so.
Well, I mean, just there's probably a few random ports,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't see it. I kind of follow along with the couple of big titles. I know Zelda is. I'm not sure what else they're probably releasing. But.
Yep. Cool.
How many games do you need when you launch, though? I mean, you can't just have 4 games with a console.
This is such a different paradigm.
They may not all be Nintendo, but they might be like EA Sport games.
Yeah.
I mean, like they had the whole basketball theme in the commercial.
Yeah, they had that NBA 2K or whatever version that was. I don't know. I mean, as long as they got a couple big hitters, I think that's all that matters. And then do a virtual console. They don't even need to call it that anymore. Just call it download, Nintendo Classics or whatever you want. But maybe that's why they put it there. Anyway, we're going to get to that. Last thing, price. What's your final verdict on what you guys think the price is going to be?
$249.
$249
for the base, $300
$99.
$300
So what?
for the
What do you mean by base and?
Well, they'll do something probably with memory size.
So what did they do with Wii U? Like 8 gigs and 32 or something? Is that what they did? Why would they? Oh, that would piss me off. They need one SKU, one model that they put out. I hope. Don't get me wrong. You could be right. They've done it in the past, and we'll get to that too. So you think what? $249 and $300?
I agree. $249 for the base and then $300 for the upgrade.
And you think $249 for a one model 32 gig one?
I think so.
I think it's going to be
maybe not with a game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be $300 $300. I wish it was with a game. Knowing Nintendo, I don't trust them. I think it's going to be gameless.
The first Nintendo I got had 2 games.
Yeah, well, different time,
it had
different
Duck
era.
Hunt and Super Mario Brothers.
When's the last time they put in a packing game? Other than a year down the road when they come out with special versions that also have a game tied into it. You know, when they launch a console. When's the last
when
time?
I bought my kid's DS, it had a.
No, we're gonna get into
Super
that.
Mario in it.
I think $300 without a game, 32 gigabytes internal memory, SD card reader, 1080p. Those are all my specs. Okay, so we'll see.
And one dock.
And yeah, it'll come with a
HDMI
dock.
Cable included.
Do you guys think it's gonna come with a cradle to slide in for that thing? I think it'll come with a cradle. Yeah. It kind of. I'm assuming.
I think they'll sell extras.
They'll sell the Pro controller
That's the dock,
separately.
right? The cradle.
Right? Are you guys gonna get the Pro controller if you get the Switch, or would you just settle for the cradle? I'm cool with the cradle. Yeah. I mean, the Pro controller is just like
Whatever
a PS4 or Xbox standard controller with it, so you can leave those things and just have a dedicated controller. But I'm cool with the cradle. So, but who knows? Maybe that'll change. Okay, cool. So we've already talked about what do we think it needs to have. What would we want to have? Here's what I want to talk about right now. What has Nintendo done right in the past, and what have they done wrong in the past as far as game launches?
Recent history?
All Nintendo. I mean, back to the Nintendo days. We don't have to go back to the games or the days where they were like a card and toy manufacturer, but you know,
Robbie the Robot.
Well, tell you what, there was a good a book about the launch of the Nintendo system back in the Atari era, and actually Rob the Robot, even though it was only utilized in 2 games and almost nobody had or used it, that got Nintendo a lot of visual notoriety out there. You know what I mean? Like, you saw that it just looked cool. Nobody wanted to pay the money for it, but
honestly, another innovation though, because Robbie the Robot, you had to face it towards the TV. It used that same kind of technology as the gun.
Oh, it did? I thought it was just automated to move left and right.
It had lenses. Huh. No, it had lenses on there, so it was tracking the same kinds of things on the screen that the gun was when it was being used. So, innovation-wise, I mean, it was right there. I mean, it's probably as close at the time as you could play against a computer as there was.
Right. Because Nintendo's
for all
really
those kids that had single kids, no brother or sister to play against. Here's Robbie.
It's okay, you got Rob. It sounds like a really bad after-school special.
My buddy.
Because Nintendo's had some real highs and lows, but man, when they've done some stuff right, they've done some stuff right. I was pulling up the numbers on consoles sold, And Nintendo back in the heyday in like the 85, 86 era, by the end of that life cycle into the early 90s, there was like a Nintendo in 1 in every 3 households. That's crazy. That's just huge. So I know that the numbers might not be as big as the numbers, today, but percentage-wise, that's just nuts to me. But then you look some of the other stuff they've done now. Ever since the Nintendo and NES system, they have just consistently dropped. Super Nintendo less, Nintendo 64 way less, GameCube even less. I still love those consoles though. Don't get me wrong.
NES was the only game in town at the time.
Well, remember, they were just coming off of the video game crash from Atari flooding the market with shit games, which is why they which is why they implemented that you can only make 5 games per company for Nintendo and you got to pay us licensing a year to get quality control down, because a lot of these companies like Software, etc., KB's Toys, all these places didn't even want to stock that crap anymore. They didn't believe in it. And the only reason I think that it rebounded is because Nintendo restricted that to 5 games per company, which is why you had all these shell companies pop up that were fake, like Konami came up with Ultra Games that made Konami games like Ninja Turtles. That was just Konami. But it was interesting how they kind of rebounded from that. So as far as old game in town, I mean, just a couple years ago there was ColecoVision, there was Intellivision, there was lots of different stuff out there that most of us never used or played. The last thing I did before Nintendo
ColecoVision like bankrupted or something.
Almost all of them did. It was a crash. You know what I mean? The whole
But no, Nintendo, like Famicom, Nintendo, they were the only game in town up until the Super Nintendo, and then
no, there was the Sega Master System.
Sega Genesis.
There was the Master System was 8-bit.
I don't even know that I heard about the Master System.
Yeah, again, smaller numbers, but no, it was like I've only known one person that ever had this, but I would see games for it at like the Shopco in Mason City, back when we lived in Clear Lake. There was the Master System that was starting to encroach on Nintendo's territory, and then Sega actually came out with the 16-bit system first in Japan and the U.S. with the Genesis.
Yeah, the Genesis?
Yeah. And Nintendo still trounced the Genesis, obviously, but I just think it's interesting to see, why did Nintendo come from utter dominance, which, don't get me wrong, they kind of were the only game in town, but they also came in under serious duress, bad odds, because the whole industry was stale and nobody wanted this thing, and they still brought it through to fruition. They still conquered that. So they went really uphill to get the Nintendo to sell a lot. But I think the technology was great. I think that the gamepad, very innovative, right? I remember the
games were good.
Games were good, and I think the quality control of limiting 5 was good.
Nintendo. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I don't.
No, go ahead.
My first experience of Nintendo was Donkey Kong, and it wasn't on the NES. It was on the ColecoVision.
Yeah,
I remember looking at that cartridge on the ColecoVision and it said Nintendo on it. Mm-hmm. And like that was my first memory of Nintendo.
Yeah.
And then obviously they came out with their system. But I'm sorry.
No, that's good. Well, I just think Nintendo came in kind of nobody really wanting to get into the market at that time. They succeeded. They kept quality control up. Then competition started coming into fly. But why did the attach rate diminish so much from NES to Super Nintendo to Nintendo 64 to GameCube? And then obviously the Wii was just a ridiculous financial success, at least. But to me, the things that pop into my mind are just when you think Nintendo and the stuff that made the NES great, it's a handful of great Nintendo-made games like Mario Brothers, Zelda, stuff like that. But most of the memories we have quantitatively were third-party titles from other companies. You know what I mean? And I just think that really diminished, especially after the Super Nintendo. I mean, what was 64? They didn't go with CDs, which all the publishers wanted to, right? They were stuck with cartridge, and Nintendo kept saying, well, we want quality, not quantity. Well, that's great, but then you lost a whole bunch of third-party publishers. I love the Nintendo 64. We played the shit out of it in college. One of my favorite consoles of all time. Didn't sell as well. GameCube, same situation. Sold even worse. I still love that console.
Yeah.
So what do you think Nintendo has to do? And even with the Wii sales skyrocketing, hold on, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Let me finish this thought. No. Wii skyrocketed, I know, obviously not because of third-party support. It was because everybody, including your parents and your grandparents, wanted to play Wii Bowling, right? Or Wii Sports. It was awesome and accessible, and then it sat on everybody's shelf or in their closet for years. So it made them a shitload of money, no third-party support, and it didn't maintain, so everybody just got off of it. So, and they can only run off of that money train so long. In fact, I think if this Switch doesn't work out, then it's the last console entry trial that they're going to do. But
it's hard for me to believe that they haven't succeeded, though.
What do you mean? Oh yeah, no, I agree.
When I think about it, Nintendo wasn't just up against other consoles. It became a point in history where Nintendo was now against computer gaming. Because how many of them 1 in 3 houses had a Nintendo that had a computer too? And then once they were out of the DOS phase in computers, and once Windows came around and everybody wanted a computer in their house and personal computing was this thing, I think they came up against that juggernaut and the other consoles in the market.
Right.
Wii U was successful because it was innovative. It was different than anything else and still is different than anything else.
You mean the Wii?
There.
Not the Wii U.
The Wii.
Yeah, I was going to say the Wii U bombed.
No. But the Wii was just different.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it was accessible.
It put you in a game more.
It was accessible for non-gamers to get involved.
And it had a good price point.
Yeah. But don't get me wrong. I remember when I was still managing hotels, for the holiday weekend, I had an entire family come in. They asked to use one of the ballrooms, and we weren't using it. I said, sure, you can just go set up shop. And they just put a TV because they wanted to bring in their Wii. And they were all these people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And they're all playing the Nintendo Wii. And they're saying, you know what's great about this? I don't know anything about video games, but I can pick that thing up and roll the ball down the lane, or I can hit a tennis ball. This is amazing. I think the accessibility, that price hit at home was the icing on the cake, but I think the accessibility of anybody can understand this is so great. But then we found out, well, there's only so much fun you can have bowling and playing tennis, and the rest of this stuff sucks.
But that kind of goes to what you guys are talking about. I mean, it's accessibility as a whole. I mean, price point is important. The interactive experience that you have with the gaming. I mean, if you look at the Wii is a great example because you take people that don't know gaming. It's an easy way for them to get into it. If you look at just the Nintendo, the original NES Classic that came out. Again, when you're talking before about they tried to design it as a VCR, so, to get more people into it. It's about just trying to reach out and balancing this accessibility element, which relates to pricing, it relates to design, it relates to just the actual gaming experience itself, and what are you doing? And Nintendo, in its history, has done a really good job at some points more than others of really just kind of striking that point really, really directly.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are some of the things I think we all agree that Nintendo has done. I think that was kind of a mix, but they've done some great stuff. But I think let's talk about some of the things that they really need to fix or that they've really blown, because I think we've already talked about the lack of third-party support. Why hasn't Nintendo been able to court third-party support successfully, I guess I should say, over the last 15 to 20 years or more? Why has that dwindled so much?
Because they've lagged behind.
Lag behind what? What do you mean?
They've lagged behind the curve. They're not keeping up with the PlayStation. This new system's going to fall in the same situation.
Right.
No, because you got systems that are being made for an Xbox and a PlayStation, and they're at a certain level. Mm-hmm. And they may be different languages, but they're coding, the graphics are the same. All these gameplay is the same. Next thing you know, you go to the Nintendo system, and you have to try to scale all that down.
Right.
I don't know if you guys ever tried to play Madden on a Wii, but it was ridiculous.
I remember trying to play the Nintendo Call of Duty 1 on the Wii, and it sucked.
Yeah, but that's the thing is Nintendo limits what can happen to where it has to fit in a certain thing. Mm-hmm. And not to mention, I had Call of Duty for the Wii. There's no blood in it, no nothing, right? I mean, it's like Nintendo standards.
Right.
But these companies aren't going to want to spend these outrageous budgets on these games and then have to put in a third console where they have to scale everything down or just do something completely different.
I totally agree with you.
So if you can't port it over, if they're not making a game now, I don't know, trying to think of one, The Last of Us 2. I know it's not going to be
right, but we'll use it as an example.
Yeah, so but if you couldn't take Last of Us 2 and put it on Nintendo, they're just not going to offer it to them.
Right. Yeah, because there's some companies, they said that they have no plans. EA said they have no plans to bring Overwatch to it.
Yeah.
Do you think, though, that that Nintendo has to achieve parity, ballpark, with the Xbox One and PlayStation? Because this is the argument I was making last week. Is I think that if they at least hit 75%, then you would have third-party publishers that would be like, Okay, because I think they tried. Remember, with the Wii, they were trying. They were trying to make these Call of Duties and Maddens and just scale them down. But I think that the gap was too big. But do you think if they got it at least closer? Don't give me a $200 console. Give me a $250 to $300 console. It doesn't have to be as powerful as those guys. You pay a little bit more because you're getting the portability tax. It's going to cost more money to have that stuff crammed into a portable device. But close that gap so that at least publishers are going to say, okay, yeah, we can port this too, and it'll still look good. Because that didn't work on the Wii, but it's got to be closer. Or do you think that they need to achieve almost parity?
For certain people to enter the market, it's going to have to be the parity. But you're not going to get an Overwatch 2 on Switch, I don't think. What you might get, though, are those people that are making PS Vista games. Is it Vista or is it PSP? Whatever the new mobile thing is.
The Vita.
Okay,
yeah, but that's
sorry. Yeah,
that's an indie developed platform right now,
Vita,
almost solely.
Those titles that they're making for that are going to start entering onto Switch, and it makes me think, how much is Switch going to impact their DS sales?
I'm assuming it's eventually going to cannibalize it, right? You mean 3DS, right?
Well, yeah.
So our viewers, because when you say DS,
because you're So even my son would freak out on that one.
Yeah.
So the 3DS XL, as he likes to call his. But how much is that going to impact their sales of that?
Right. Well, you know what Nintendo has said, and they said this too when the DS came out. They said, well, no, it's not meant to supplant the Game Boy Advance. It's meant to be like a third pillar. Bullshit. It cannibalized it. We all knew it was going to happen.
Advanced games
right.
Anymore.
They're now saying the exact same thing about the Switch. Well, come on. We all know if you're going to put, if you're going to have the ability to have this portable and be more powerful, you know that eventually that this is going to supplant the 3DS. But of course, they can't say that from a marketing standpoint. They can't. They
still want to sell DS games.
3DS exactly. Which is funny because as much as we laugh about Nintendo's, even though the Wii sold really well, the Wii U's poor sales. Obviously the highest selling console of all time was the PlayStation 2 worldwide, 155 million, units, which is just insane. I don't think we're ever going to hit that number again. I think a big part of that was the DVD player. It was the cheapest DVD player you could get.
The PS4 might.
No, it'll never even get close to PlayStation 2 numbers.
50 million units this Christmas. 50 million
well, no, that's total. That's Christmas. Lifetime. That's not this Christmas. That's lifetime.
That lifetime?
Yeah, that's lifetime.
I thought that was just this Christmas.
Yeah, no sweat. Yeah, I don't think anything will ever hit PlayStation 2 numbers. But the next one is 154 million. That's a Nintendo DS. That thing, I've never even played. Well, I mean, maybe I've seen it at the store, and I've never played a DS. I've never had a game, and this is the second best-selling console of all fucking time. I think Nintendo is really smart to leverage that market when people say, oh, everyone's just going smartphones. They're not going to need this stuff. Numbers are saying complete opposite. I know that the 3DS got off to a really rocky start when they brought the 3DS, but then as soon as they lowered the price, the numbers went right back up, and it's doing really well right now too. So I just think Nintendo makes – we're veering off topic here. What do you think some of the things that Nintendo has screwed up in the past, or we're never going to get through this topic? First topic's going to be like 2/3 of the show.
The Wii U.
Oh, that's right. We're talking about third party. Yeah, third party support. They haven't had. They had no third party support with Wii U. Nobody made games for it. Nobody bought it. This is kind of the chicken or the egg thing. And I just think Nintendo sometimes has a real challenge understanding the Western mindset, because obviously we're a much bigger market than the Japanese market. But look at what they just did with the NES Classic. This is something that everybody still wants. And from what I've read, they've still only sold a total of a couple 100,000 units. You just missed a holiday season. Everybody wanted this thing where you could have sold millions. I don't understand how you screw something up that bad, because the technology inside this thing is actually very rudimentary. It's just a little arm or something, you can get those little Raspberry Pis, those little Android self-contained computers. They're like $20, and it'll run every emulator and every game for the past 15 years until you get to the PS2 era, where it can't handle the polygons. This is not a complex device, and they made these controllers perfect replicas. Love it. 2-foot cords.
Yeah.
Fuck you. What part of you went through testing and focus groups and then you give me this 2-foot fucking cord. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I don't
For a
get that.
55-inch television.
It doesn't make any sense to me. That seems like the stupidest thing. And yes, you can get extenders from third parties. And yes, you can get wireless controllers from third parties. How do you make something so good that you completely misread how much the audience would love this thing? And then even when you find out about it, I mean, you should have been able to tell there was no pre-orders for this. First warning sign. Then when it sold out as quickly as they did a quick poll. They announced this thing in what, August? Or around the summer to end of the summer, and it didn't come out till November. You have 3 to 4 months to at least do some kind of testing to project what kind of sales you might have. And even if you're off, you got time to scale or at least try to meet some of the demand. And I felt like they just sat on it. And missing out on millions of potential sales just seems so, as much as I want to say, just dumb, it's easy to knock on, but it also seems so Nintendo.
Well, because when the original Wii came out, I'm trying to remember if this was the production issues as far as there was the initial demand before the holiday season where there was a shortage
With the motion or something in the wasn't it, or what was it?
Yeah, component, but essentially, it was a similar scenario where you had a lot of people in a market that just did not have access to purchase the item.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at kind of the reasoning behind it, it was because it wasn't driven so much by the demand side of things. It was like, well, they had already pre-planned their production setup overseas. And the idea was like, well, we'll get to it. Like, we're not going to be able to produce everything, produce enough units to kind of meet this demand, but in the long run, this production setup will eventually get everybody a unit. So that kind of thinking is where it's not really based around, all right, we're not going to add on other facilities or or additional staffing or something like that to ramp up production.
Yeah.
We're just going to, like, this is what we've got. You guys, you'll get it when you get it.
We've already set the price. We're not changing anything.
That seems like such a poor business decision because this is not a complex thing. This is a tiny little chip. I mean, the fact that when you showed me that article about how they've hacked it, and I mean, as long as you can get in there and find some kind of jailbreak and get in there, again, Nintendo titles and even Super Nintendo titles are very small file sizes. I mean, they're tiny. You could put every single game on an SD card that's only like 1 gigabyte and still have 3/4 of the room left. They're tiny. So if someone could find a way to get in there and hack it, you could put every single Nintendo game ever on that thing if you wanted to. But the technology doesn't need to be really powerful to run that stuff, so I can't imagine having production issues for something that I could buy off of the internet, like a Raspberry Pi, for $12.
Wow.
This is not complex
Maybe it's
stuff.
not so much production. Maybe it's Nintendo money issues.
No, they're still loaded flush with cash. Yeah, I mean, they're still.
Maybe the shortfall is like we need to make sure we can pay everybody this week.
Yeah,
so we only have this much staff.
Besides their R&D and all that stuff, they could still run on Nintendo Wii money for another 5 to 10 years if they didn't actually put any money into manufacturing or R&D. So they're still now. Don't get me wrong. If this becomes a big failure and their stock plummets, okay, they could be hurting. But no, Nintendo's still doing just fine with money. I don't know. I just don't. It just seems like another Nintendo thinking where they just don't think it's that important, and I don't get it.
It's a cultural setup. Like it starts at corporate and then eventually moves to the
What's with this 2-foot cord? Are you fucking kidding me? None of you said, well, you think?
Once it's already set up and running and designed and out the door,
It's so dumb.
There's no real look back.
It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know. That's something that drives me nuts. We can kind of harp that. Is there anything else to end this so that we can move on to our next topic? Is there anything else that you guys think Nintendo really needs to do or should be doing to make this console work this time so it's not their last foray into maybe just being a software company, which I personally would not mind at all. I would love to play Nintendo games on the PlayStation 4. I'd be all for that. But what do you guys think that Nintendo should or has to do to make this console work this time? Different.
Games. Content. They have to have big games. They have to have people supporting it that are third party.
Right.
Because you can only, Mario's great. Bring back Kid Icarus, whatever. But you can only have so many of your own titles. You got to do the things that everybody else is playing.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be, you want to sustain, you want to be something.
Yeah. God, I would love it if they came out with. I would love to see Mario packed in. Don't think it's going to happen. I would love to say, here's every Nintendo and Super Nintendo game, and if you want, tell you what, we're going to do a Nintendo ID subscription service. $6 a month. You have access to this entire catalog of like a Netflix thing that you can stream and play those games. That would be awesome. Wouldn't that be cool? Would you guys do something like that?
Oh yeah.
I just think that there's so many things that one of the most valuable things about Nintendo, as frustrating as they might be from time to time, is their IP is often second to none. Their creative team is second to none. The care and quality they've put into some of their titles and the way that they've changed the industry is second to none. If they would just harness it. I remember watching the trailer for that NES Classic Edition when they had the old 80s light coming out of the the tagline, and you heard the guy go, "Now you are playing with power." God, what if you just took all these old retro games and brought back the actual old retro commercials and reused them? Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
I mean, they're obviously marketing towards us. It's not going to be your YouTuber. By YouTuber, I mean it's not going to be like your teen kid that has no idea what Kid Icarus or Excite Bike is. This is obviously towards us, but I don't know. Anything else that you guys want to end this topic in? Because we really got to get to our next topic.
I really need to get to the bathroom.
You got to take a bathroom break? No sweat.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We got everything wrapped up in a nice, pretty package.
Yeah, 45-minute package.
Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think about the Nintendo Switch reveal? Have we hit the marks? What do you think it's going to have? What would you love to see it have? Let us know what you think in the comments below.
Yeah.
And with that, Matt, go drain the lizard.
I'll be right back.